Hello, everyone. All right, so this is my first time using Zoom in a webinar mode, so just bear with me as I welcome you guys into the class. So today we're going to dive into essential oils, nutrition, cognitive function, or more so emotional function, and how to improve that with some natural tools. Specifically, let's understand what emotions are. This is actually kind of a really important thing because we are basically physical beings that actually make all decisions emotionally. So let's dive in. I'm just going to share my screen. My name is Natalie Pelto. I'm here to welcome you and to dive into the education around emotions, essential oils, nutrition. I'm a certified nutritional therapist, certified detox specialist, and certified for cancer prevention and longevity advisor. I've also worked 20 years in frontline healthcare where I have basically been looking inside the human body for that long, which means that I've actually been witnessing our population get sicker and sicker and sicker over the last 20 years, almost to the point where we are in epidemic proportions. So this has actually led me, my past story is not something I'm going to really share right now because we're going to dive into a very short, kind of more advanced class in essential oils. If you have questions about my story and recovering autism, please always make sure to reach out. I have really open communication with that and always give people a lot of resources. So let's dive into what are emotions. So emotions are chemical reactions that are linked to hormones and the nervous system. So this is one thing that I really like to share all the time to keep it simple, right? We really overcomplicate things in Western culture and in Western medicine. We like to break the entire body apart and then we get specialists to try to figure it out. And then what we do is that we try to alleviate symptoms with all this chemistry, when we really can just simplify things for ourselves, especially in preventative care or in the ability to support ourselves from home. I'm a full believer in the integrated approach. So there are times where you will need modern medicine to help you bridge into a more natural lifestyle, through the process. Always work with your doctors to either minimize your medication as you go, but just always keep that very open relationship and just be very choosy with your doctors. Because honestly, if your doctor is not working with you, really they get paid, right? Like they are for you. So you make sure you have a doctor that you like and that is going to work with you. So simplifying things with the chemical reactions is so important because that's what emotions are. We basically are this sausage casing, as I like to say, a very important one, by the way, but we're actually just this physical component, right? If we break all that down, I always tell people, break it down to a cellular structure. And then once we actually go even further, what are those cells made out of? Well, they're made out of genetic material and chemicals. So basically we're chemistry. Chemical reactions that are linked to our hormones and nervous system are things like dopamine. So all of the hormones that they try to recalibrate, we'll say, with medication are things that we actually naturally should be able to recalibrate ourselves, which is why we're going to really touch a little bit on nutrition today as well. So what happens with these chemical responses, right, is that they actually attach to cells. So foundationally, if we stopped breaking apart the body and we just looked at it as basically a bunch of cells, and if you treat the cell and you nourish the cell and you detoxify the cell, it's a really intelligent computer system in its own right. And then it will actually either kill off what it doesn't need, or it will heal itself. Like that's just basically the human genome and how we were able to survive from, caveman days to now. All right. So creating a physical reaction in the body. So we manifest how we feel emotionally in the physical reality. So this is where things get really interesting because a lot of our physical components and physical reactions are often actually foundationally found in our emotional responses. So I wanted to touch a little bit on what a little bit of the science of emotions are, not too much, because I do have to keep it short. But I wanted to touch on that so that you guys realize that these, even though emotions are feelings, they are still an actual response system that is happening physically inside of us, right? It's a chemical response. It's a whole network of things because we are systemic. We are a body that reacts in a systemic way. So that means that it all works together. So stop breaking things apart, okay? Fix it. The way to fix the body is to treat it as a system rather than try to break down each system. Like you have a cardiologist for your heart, you have a urologist for your urinary system. And yet a lot of those conditions are still all linked to lifestyle and environmental. Any chronic illness these days is mostly linked to your environment, which includes your internal environment, what you put into it, and then your external environment, what you put onto it and what you're exposed to in your current reality, whether it be generational, like habits that your parents did and fed you and taught you, or just what you're doing right now in, program society. So it was really important to touch on that. So what are essential oils? This is why essential oils were my topic for this week. Essential oils are chemical constituents as well. So this is why it gets really interesting, is that that we can consciously choose. Now, the one thing about essential oils is they don't have a negative connotation to them. They attach to cell receptors as well, kind of like emotions, which is kind of similar. And then they create a physical reaction in the body. How interesting. So let's dive into that just for a second and keep it nice and simple. So essential oils are also chemical constituents. They come from plant matter from an outside source that is of biological nature, so like us. And so they also attach to cell receptors, and we can actually, which is what they do for their own plant matter. And the beauty of essential oils is that we are able to use that, put it on our skin, and because we are so cellularly, remember, break it down to the cell, it's that simple. We are somewhat similar to cellular structure of plant matter, or biological, and so it actually allows us to utilize it. And the thing that's nice about plants, I'll give you guys a little hint, nobody gives juice to plants. So generally, if they're of an organic nature or of a high quality yield from a very important plant, like a very good nurtured plant, we get all the positive effects of that when we use them. So it's kind of like bypassing. So just say you were really angry. And this is just an example. You were really angry and there's an essential oil that you wanted to use for that. You wanted to see if you can flip-flop, we call them flip-flopping your emotions around. A lot of therapists will I know that Daniel uses the flip-flop kind of terminology a lot. And so you wanted to inhale that. Those chemical constituents can kind of bypass your natural occurring. What would normally happen would be you would have that angry response, and then that is actually a reaction, that chemistry is happening through your body when you have that response. And then that, emotion gets attached to your cell receptor. But what if when you were in the middle of all that, or when you were feeling sad or, different anxious, and you decided to inhale another essential oil, and its chemical receptors or its chemical constituents actually bypass that and attach to the cell receptor first, or knocked off that negative emotion and attached itself. So wouldn't that be cool? Maybe that's what happens. It is. So it's kind of interesting to see how potent and promising essential oils are. And that's why so many therapists are bringing them into their practice. So one thing about essential oils is that those chemical constituents vary. So we are going to talk a little bit about what they are, but in a generalized term, because each essential oil has the ability to have an impact on our emotions in its own right, depending on if it's a floral, if it's a mint, a citrus, a tree, a herbaceous, or a spice. So I want to dive into, because it's so important for us to foundationally understand emotion, it's everything really. Healing your relationships or your emotions with the external world, and I just did a live on Instagram about this, is really what happens internally in our own world. Now, I want to touch a little bit on cause and effect versus past programming. If this is a new term for you, cause and effect means that, I will give an example. If you were a mother, okay, who just has a brand new baby, and the phone is ringing, the dog is barking, your baby is crying, and then you dropped something, or you spilt the milk that you were trying to put in a bottle, we'll say. So that is a cause and effect reaction, and you are seriously feeling overwhelmed. And what's happening in this time is that there's stress hormone being released. There are all these emotions that are starting to take place. Versus past programming, right? Which is past programming is what society and what is deemed to be acceptable in behavior from whoever delegates it in the past. Working, for example, a past program would be the expectation that you should work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and that you should have children, get married. And we're seeing a huge dip in this because we're starting to question. Questioning wasn't very popular back in the day because it actually put programming and societal norms into question. And so if you were a little girl, you were basically told to be quiet in the corner. And most girls have actually a lot of past programming around sharing their voice because of this. This is something that we can dive into in NLP. And when you learn about the narrative and the stories that we tell ourselves, this is where we learn how much of our emotional structures and our emotional triggers are actually linked to things that happen to us between the ages of about 2 to 6. That's where we start to have the ego come in, which is basically our identity of accepting. That's when we start to say I and, you know, my toys. And we start to see that the world may not be as safe as what we originally thought. And so we create these reactions to keep us safe. And that's completely normal. This is scientifically, therapists work through this all the time. Now, the question is, are they one and the same? And understanding what triggers are. And so this is where I want to talk about emotions in the sense that what happens when you have an emotional response to something, whether it be joyful or negative or anxious. We'll talk about anxiety quite a bit. I know that that's a really, really powerful one right now in the world. But when we're feeling anxious and we have something trigger that anxiety, at the beginning, we're not aware of what is making us anxious. But normally anxiety resides in the future of worry of what may happen. And then we have like feelings of nostalgia and depression that reside in the past, the feelings of being, of not having let go of things that have happened in the past. And so emotions then become so overwhelming that we almost lose sight of the thing that started it. And so really exploring that that overwhelm and the reaction that we have to any situation generally stems from past programming, and for the most part are one and the same. I don't want to say always, but for the most part are one and the same. There's obviously going to be car accidents and external factors that are going to trigger very specific responses that are healthy and normal. So I don't want to discredit that. But for the most part, when we're feeling the feelings that we're going to talk about today, which is anxiety, depression, overwhelmed, scatterbrained, unfocused, you know, those are the things that our society and our collective are having a hard time with. And so really focusing on understanding triggers is a huge component, bringing in essential oils once you've discovered those triggers. So questioning. My favorite things to teach about these days are understanding the refine system that I do on every Friday. And I do this daily as well, but every Friday I go through a reflect, review, and refine. So I reflect on the week that's passed. I review the things that triggered me. I reviewed the situations that I played over in my head over and over again. That's a tip. If you notice yourself going to bed at night replaying the same, that is a trigger. You are replaying something that you wished had been different. Your mind is actually quite smart in trying to make sense of it for you. When we try to change, there's also going to be some resistance to that as well, because what you've been taught has been on repeat since you were a child to keep you safe. So it's nothing wrong with you. That's another thing to really explore, is that the way to actually get out of these cause, effect, and past programming is actually to take a lot of time, and it becomes a practice to rewire your brain. That's the good news. You are totally able to rewire your thoughts, your nervous system, and create new neural pathways. So not all is lost. Okay, so that's just diving a little bit into cause and effect of past programming and its direct impact on our emotional states. That's actually what is happening. And so those feelings are very validated. We are, no matter what, feeling the way that we feel is not wrong. And I think that that's something that as humans, and especially as women, we tend to really feel that our emotions are shameful. and that we feel this overwhelm, like we're not good enough. We're not doing enough, really, is the worst one, is we're not doing enough, we're not good enough. And we have scarcity in many ways, which is just because of mostly disconnection with the world today. So we're going to dive into a little bit more of empowerment now, right after we talk briefly about exploring trauma and epigenetic trauma. So heal yourself and heal your entire ancestry line. I wanted to touch, and I just want to make sure I'm on time, because I don't want to make this longer for you guys. Whew, got to barrel through this. Okay, so exploring trauma and epigenetic trauma. So on your genes and in your cells, you have gene expression. And what that means is that your parents gave you their genetic material, right? It's that simple. They gave you pieces of them. But did you know that you actually get not just what they gave you, but what your grandparents gave you, and then what their grandparents gave you? And so far they're seeing it at least up to 3 generations prior to you. So that could be like 300 years. How are you ever going to know exactly what they were? And you have to think about the wars and all these things. All of these past traumas are passed down. It is very common for a mother who has anxiety to have a child who also has anxiety. And it's not because the mother just has anxiety and really just models that behavior. That's not it at all. It's actually because there's a predisposition to that cellular structure, to that imbalance in chemistry. Now top that off with the environment that the mother is going to be putting you in, or that you are being put in as a child, where you're eating all the same things that your mom's eating and you're living the same lifestyle. Then it's like 2 things that are actually putting external pressure on those already predisposed epigenetic markers. So to keep it simple is that it's normal for that, because it's it's a lot. It's 2/3 of the equation. So now and then the other third is already genetically predisposed. So when we the good news is, this is what I want to tell you, that can change. And we, through our environment, can completely have this whole shift. So let's dive into, first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the oils, and then we'll dive into nutrition. Okay, so how to use the oils. This is a pretty common thing for, surprisingly for emotional quick response. It's actually best to inhale your oil. So essential oils like rose oil, balance oil, whisper oil, citrus oils, all of those have a huge impact once they hit your olfactory, because your limbic system is your oldest brain. That reptilian brain that you have is most stimulated and has the quickest, it's like the central control system in some ways. And it has a direct link to your gut too, which we'll dive into in a second. The second way is topically. So the thing about topical application of the oils is that once it's on your skin, it's in every cellular structure within about 20 minutes. It's literally in your bloodstream within about 2 seconds to 5 seconds. So it's really, really quick acting. So this is another way. So what I like to do is and this is for those of you who have never dealt with essential oils for emotions, rub some in your hands, and inhaling it is great. I do a count of 4, breathe in, count of 4, breathe out, count of 4, breathe in, count of 4. And then I actually just rub it over here to get the double whammy. Now, internalization of essential oils is the last way. Now, many people don't speak about this, but there are certain essential oils that can be taken internally. You know what? They're super, super potent. They're super powerful. Keep it to the minimum. Don't give it to children. But one thing about internalization, for example, if you're using citrus oil, where 95% of your serotonin is actually created in your gut flora, or created in the gut microbiome, then you actually have this huge impact by taking it internally. Now, if you smell it before you drop it in your water, you are in business. Just remember, citrus oil should not be put on your skin at this time of year, because it's summer, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. Okay, but just know that there are multiple ways to actually make this plant matter benefit you. And so why wouldn't we want to use all the tools that we can? Thing that's nice about oils is, for the most part, they do not interact with medication. So they're just a great addition to have when you need them for a quick on-the-fly response. All right, so those are just some of the ways that you can use them. Now I'm going to touch into how to use the oils with complementary therapies. So cord cutting, EFT, meditation, visualization, and journaling. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one for like 2 seconds. So cord cutting is when we are really, really down. one of the things, and really anxious about something, a trauma, something that you're reliving over and over again. If you're finding yourself repeating that narrative, there are two ways to actually maximize cord cutting, is that you can allot yourself a certain time of the day to think about that trauma. I know that seems really odd to give yourself permission, but when you do, and you put aside time to, you don't actually play it on repeat all day, because you know that, you know, maybe at 3 o'clock when you're at home and you're by yourself, you can actually take all the time you need. This has been, I've heard therapists talk about this all the time, how beneficial this is. Now, cord cutting is the ability, is when you visualize yourself attached to the trauma, seeing the trauma, replaying the trauma, and then picturing a cord that is actually from you to it and cutting it with very sharp scissors. How to make these things effective with using essential oils is really focusing on the wheel, which I'm going to show you in a minute, but focusing on the wheel of the emotion and that chemical response that the wheel of essential oils with the chemical response that's happening. So if you're feeling somber from that emotion, or you're feeling stressed, or you're feeling just like grieving, then using a tree oil is going to be extremely beneficial for that. And I can name off a few, but you'll get to see them after. EFT is another great way. I'm going to do a quick demonstration of an EFT tapping and how simple EFT tapping can be. And then I just think that there's probably people trying to get on that might not be able to. Meditation. So EFT, when you're using the essential oils actually for this, I like to put them on my heart. So cord cutting, I like to put essential oils directly on my heart. I think it's extremely beneficial to just really open up that area. There are more neurons from your heart to your brain than your brain to your heart. So it's just a safe bet. Plus on top of it, your heart pumps out the blood to everywhere else. Go ahead and put it there. EFT is the same deal. I actually like to put EFT tapping on my pulse points. Okay, so I like to put them on my wrist, I like to put it on my heart, and then just up here. Meditation. So meditation is a little different. When we're meditating, we're focusing on trying to not be so distracted. Meditation is all about being present and in the moment. So and is extremely a complementary therapy to anybody who wants to become more empowered in their emotional state. So meditation is actually best used in a diffuser, things like frankincense essential oil, balance essential oil, and I'm going to talk about blends versus single oils in just a minute as well. So visualizations is another way. It's just, again, picturing the life that you want and trying to embody the emotions that come up with that life, just so that you can flip-flop, again, try to remove, and I use the term lightly, it's not light at all. When you are in the thick of it, it's really hard to flip-flop into another, but it's actually a practice that when is continuously going will get better. Just like yoga, just like meditation, just like journaling. So yoga obviously brings you present in the moment, very similar to meditation. Diffusion is best for yoga. I find that trying to get essential oils on my body while I'm doing yoga is a little bit more tricky. You can, and I have done it, but it's a little bit more snapping you out of the practice. So I like it in the diffuser for this as well. And then journaling. So prior to journaling, I again do pulse points. That's my favorite. I do a big inhale, and I actually believe strongly in intuitive journaling, which means that you just literally brain dump everything and then make sure to reread it once a week, just so you can actually see the messages you've left for yourself. You'd be surprised. We actually tend to leave ourselves clues when we're trying to deal with certain emotions and things like that. All right, so I'm going to give you guys a bonus share, which is just a demonstration of what EFT tapping can look like. This is super simple, guys, and it is super awkward at first, so don't get me like. Trust me, I was there. But after 4 years or 2 years of trying this, the thing is with any kind of new modality that you try or any therapy you try will bring a little bit of discomfort. So it's important to do it a couple times to just to connect to intuition a little bit more and see if it's for you. The thing with EFT is that it's really simple, so it's nice and it kind of snaps you back. Ideally, what we're trying to do whenever we're dealing with chemical responses in the body is that we're trying to recalibrate, and sometimes having a recalibration means just becoming present, because it calms that parasympathetic nervous system and it makes everything recalibrate so that it's not so haywire, and so that there's not all of this cortisol running through your body and other things. So my suggestions with my oil suggestion for EFT tapping is frankincense, rose or geranium on the heart, adaptive blend, and I would put that one in the diffuser. So what does EFT tapping mean? It means that it's called the emotional freedom technique. You can actually Google and YouTube a ton of these scripts where they're like full scripts of EFT tapping and demonstrations. So I don't want to take up too much time with that. I like flip-flop statements. I think that when you're in the thick of it and you need a quick like snap out, these are great. And you could do them like in a bathroom stall. You could do it in your head. So you can just be kind of hiding if it's too uncomfortable to do, right? In front of people, obviously. All right, so this is the pulse. So we start EFT tapping here. Okay, so these are the meridians, the energy centers of the body. These can be measured, so they're totally legit. So you can tap here, and then the next tapping is above the head. Okay, just if you have to come back to the video, top of the eyebrow, gently on the side of the eye, underneath the eye, under the nose, above the lips, where the chin is, heart, underarm, and start over. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a flip-flop statement. So just say, for example, I was really overwhelmed and I was really feeling down about myself before coming on a video, because I do a lot of live videos, and maybe my followers dropped and, you know, by one, and I was like losing my shit. That happens. Okay, we're human. We live in a comparisonitis world, so it's terrible. So what I would do is I would actually just start tapping, and I would just say, just because I feel like I'm not good enough, I know that I am. Just because I feel like I'm not good enough, I choose to know that I'm good enough. And there's no wrong way to say it. Just because I feel that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy and deserving, that my followers are dropping, I know that that's because there are better followers coming, and that I am good enough, and that I'm attracting those that need to be in my life and get my medicine. Just because I feel that I am not good enough, I know that I am good enough. Just because my head tells me I'm not good enough, my heart knows I'm good enough. Just because society tells me I'm not good enough, I know I'm good enough. So you kind of see how easy this is to flip-flop your statements. There's no wrong or right way to do this. It's just ideally going to bring you present. It's going to make you feel good. And as awkward as you might feel at the beginning, it gets really easy after. And it's just something you can do for yourself so quickly. Now, I obviously spoke aloud. It's not necessary, right? Your voice in your head is louder sometimes than the one of people screaming at you. All right, so we are getting close to the end here. So just because we started about 5 minutes late, I'm going to give myself 5 more minutes. So blends versus single oils. So why choose a single oil over a blend? Well, to be honest, blends were created so that you didn't have to guess which ones are going to work with you. And I want to bring some awareness to that top bubble that has motivate, forgive, cheer, and console. doTERRA specifically went into a lot of research specifically on understanding the mints, the citruses, you know, the spices, and how they interacted with our chemistry. So when you don't have to have that guesswork, when you don't have to be like, okay, do I want like do I want just like a Bourvité, or do I want, like, I don't know which one's going to work with my chemistry. For the most part, these are amazing tools. And the thing is that you can just smell them and you'll probably just be able to snap yourself back into it. There are a few oils that I do like single, such as rose oil, which I put in front on my heart every day, and especially before videos like this, so I can share from my heart. And I think that rose oil has just such a powerful effect because she is the queen of oils, to really just bring you back and snap you back to present. There are a few very staple essential oils and singles that I do like, such as rose oil, geranium. I do like any citrus oil and citrus oils are very inexpensive, but I like any citrus oils, making sure that they're pure and potent and that they are safe. If you're worried about pets, guys, I have a whole thing about pets and citrus oils, so please don't be worried if you're using doTERRAs, and just make sure there are doors open for them. And then the thing about blends is I like blends because, again, of how much went into creating these blends for us. So for example, Adaptive Essential Oil is one that was just released, and it's literally considered the wellness, the mental wellness blend because of its empowerment and its powerful aroma that has this ability to snap people off back into the present. My husband loves this essential oil. He, when I brought it home, was one of the first essential oils in like 5 years that he was like, oh, I really like that. So it kind of really showed me. And actually, we would never live without this supplement, to be honest. This supplement will change your life if you are someone who suffers from any type of mental wellness and need mental wellness support, is what I should say. All right, diving into the emotional chemistry wheel. Let's just break this down super quick just to give you an example of it. You actually can download this wheel from Google. So that's how simple it is. I actually keep one of these on my wall, which I've been referencing when I was talking to you because I don't know them all by heart. I do know that citrus oils are great for when you're discouraged and distressed. That one I know, and when you're feeling kind of gloomy. Mint oils are great when you're like feeling out of place and you need that uplifting, like motivational stuff. And then we have things like when you're kind of disconnected, you get herbs and grasses. Disinterested and bored, spices are great for kind of snapping you back out of that. When you're grieving, tree oils, tree, for sure, that one. We've been through a few deaths recently, so that one I know. And florals are great for when you're kind of like, when you're worried, when you're feeling the comparisonitis, I like to say. That's a great one to have. So there's a whole reason for this. For like, I could get into the science of like, you know, the fact that I love citrus bloom because citrus oils, you know, create serotonin production and help to rebalance the chemistry in our body that way. But also magnolia is higher in linalool, which is what I'm diffusing right now. And that linalool will keep me calm. So I'll be happy and I'll be calm at the same time. Who doesn't want that? So that is my breakdown of what that is. Diving into nutrition and your emotion and the gut-brain connection. So this could have its own video and its own webinar. This is what I specialize in mostly. Nutrition is definitely my game. This is my favorite thing to talk about. And the gut-brain connection is so powerful, right? There's a vagus nerve that goes from your gut to your brain. And so everything that you actually ingest in your mouth in its own way, in its own right, makes its way up to your brain. So if it's something inflammatory, you're not just getting gut inflammation, you're getting brain inflammation. If it's something that's citrusy, then you're getting the opposite, right? You're getting beautiful serotonin production. And you got to look at that as, you know, only 5% of that is actually created in the brain, where 95% of it is likely created in the gut. And so when we look at those, that percentage difference, we really don't treat our guts the way that they should. Green tender stems, leafy vegetables, specifically things that are high in B12, those have some of the biggest impact on our emotional bodies because they're recalibrating the body naturally in its chemistry. That's what we have to understand, is that emotions are chemical responses, and we have an arsenal in our kitchen that can actually help with this. This is what I do as a nutritional therapist. So if you have questions about that, make sure to reach out, make sure to email me, and we can have a chat around that as well. Okay, so if you need oils, this is just a different, like how you can access them. I've made this super simple. This is not going to be like your average clothes. Basically, the way to get oils is you can choose to purchase them retail. You can choose to purchase them at a discount and create your own kit, or buy your one oil if you plan on buying more in the future. And then there are amazing collections. Now, these are all in Canadian prices. For those in the US, just note that it's 30% less than what it shows up on here, which is quite substantial. But just note that kits are actually waived this enrollment fee. So you actually kind of get that $42 or $35 membership free. So just note that kits are usually the best bang for your buck. They have kits that are made for everyone. My favorite is actually the Healthy Essentials Enrollment Collection, which is the one with the bigger diffuser and the bigger bottles that are 15 mils. The reason I like that kit is because it comes with Copaiba, Balance, and Adaptive, and those are all based on emotional support. And this class is about emotional support, so obviously I'm going to talk to you about that. Another prompt that I would like for you guys to think about, if you are someone who suffers very greatly from mental wellness or need a lot of mental wellness support, I got to word that properly. Using the discount and getting the adaptive kit would be my best recommendation for you, and just, you know, do it your way. Now, if you don't have essential oils, this is how simple it is. I'm going to leave the slide up for literally 1 minute. I've simplified ordering. You can email, text, call your order to me, even if you don't know the price, because all I'm going to do is I'm going to create, or I suggest emailing it to me. Just make sure that you include your email. And just so you know, This is actually how simple it is. I will just send you the cart. You can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's what I want, or no, that's too much for me, you know, and then you have the ability then to at least link and play around in there. So I've just made this as simple as possible. If there is something you want, just text me or email me and we'll start a dialect on that, keeping it simple, taking all the hard stuff out of it for you. What happens after that, once I sent you that link, it's a direct link into a safe doTERRA website cart where you can purchase your oils. Okay, and then how are we supported in my organization? How are we supported in my community, I should say, is lots of free mentoring videos, which I mean, offer for free pretty much to everybody anyways. Classes such as this one, community via Facebook. I have an amazing ebook that I created about 2 years ago. And there's always a little welcome package for those who do decide to join. If you are actually working with another, and that's one thing I do want to definitely say, if you're working with a wellness advocate already, you've been sampled, make sure to follow up with them. That's actually one of the most crucial things, is when people have been teaching you and educating you. This is a world of collaboration, not competition. So make sure to go back to them if they have. And lastly, I just want to talk about nutritional support. I'm going to answer a couple of questions after this. I'm bringing back client sessions. I had them closed off for a year as I worked on my membership portal and really kind of brought in a whole program through that. And if you have inquiries about figuring out maybe how to rebalance your chemistry, or chat about, the sessions are 90 minutes. They're actually super, super affordable. I have sliding scale payment plans available with what's going on in the world. This is one of my missions, is to support our collective to healing. You can't do that if nobody can afford your service. So just make sure to reach out if this is something that you are interested in. Okay, there is so much happening in the nutrition world right now. Are there any questions? So I just barreled through that really quickly. I'm going to hop into my Zoom and just see what is happening, if I can find it. All right, hold, oh, there we go, stop share. All right, here we go. Hello, who's joined us? Perfect, let's see if there's anything in the chat box. No chats. If anybody has any questions, make sure you let me know, because I would love to answer them. I hope that you guys got a lot of value out of that. That was a lot of fast talking for, you know, such a short period of time, and a lot of education. But it's really important for us to try to keep things simple. Remember, you're a cellular structure, and that really focusing on using essential oils just to kind of try to snap yourself back into rebalancing your chemistry is what we're trying to do in the world of, and you got to think of it, when your doctor is prescribing you multiple different medications, and not you specifically, but when they're prescribing medication to people that need mental wellness, it's all a guessing game for them too. They have to monitor, they have to change, they have to shift and change medications. So be aware of that this is like a process of just chemical rebalancing, and that's all they're trying to do as well. So I hope you guys had a lot of value with this. And if there are any questions, which it doesn't seem to be, I'm checking the chat box. Thank you for putting up with my difficulty at the beginning of this webinar. For all those who have signed up for the email, I'll send the link to the webinar after, and feel free to reach out for me with any questions. Okay, you guys have a great, great day.